Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Sophia. A lot of people have been asking me how I make my basic sourdough. So today I'm going to show you my process. I hope you enjoy it. This is going to be a double recipe. So I have 200 grams of starter and 700 grams of water. I use both the dough whisk and a wooden spoon. Mix that thoroughly. And then I add I add 1,000 grams of flour to that. Mix that in till no dry pockets remain. You can use your hands, that's totally fine. I typically prefer to use my hands. It gets messy, but it's part of the whole organic process of making bread. I don't mind it. I'm able to clean it up pretty good, so you can do whatever works for you. Once it's mixed thoroughly, I cover it up and let it rest for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then I measure my salt. This is a double recipe, so I need 20 grams of salt. I will measure that and then add that to the dough. Dimple it with your fingers. Some people like to mix salt in with a little bit of water. I do that sometimes, not all the time. I didn't do that this time. You can, about 50 grams of water should do if you need to. Then mix it into a very nice shaggy dough. Clean your bowl as you go. It helps with cleaning up finally when you don't have big clumps of dough, dry dough stuck in your bowl. So clean around the edges of the bowl as you go. It will help later. Then after 30 minutes we begin a stretch and fold. You pull it up and slap it over the other end of the dough. Work your way around the whole bowl, and once you make a complete cycle, we would do that 2 more times. So 3 cycles of stretch and fold for each session. We will do 6 stretch and folds over a period of 3 hours, 30 minutes intervals for this recipe. That's what I do. I do 6 stretch and folds over a period of 3 hours for every bread that I make. Sometimes I miss it, but that's typically what I shoot for. You cover that and let it rest for 30 minutes, and this is the 4th. You can see bubbles forming. You do the same thing over again. Pull it from one end to the other and work your way around the bowl. And once you make a complete cycle, you repeat it 2 more times. Then you cover that and let it rest for another 30 minutes. You know how it goes. So this is the final stretch and fold. This is the 6th and final one. You do the same thing. Don't be shy. I didn't grow up with Play-Doh or slime, so I consider this my clocking in my missed Play-Doh slime time as a kid. So I thoroughly enjoy this phase of the process. So just work your way around the bowl. Don't overdo it. Don't get carried away. Sometimes I do. 3 cycles of complete work around the bowl will do. Now I'll let this sit and rest for about 3 hours. It's usually what I shoot for, but this ended up sitting for 4 hours because I was out of the house for a little bit, which is still fine. It doesn't mess up my process at all. I also prefer to use a baking mat because it helps me clean up a lot easier. Dump the dough out. Don't forget to split it. You will not forget. It's a big ball of dough. This is a double recipe, so split it up. Work it into a very taut ball as best as you can. I usually do 1 piece of dough on the mat at a time, but I want you to see both of them, so I'm kind of just working with the space that I have right now, just so you can see both of them. And you can see that the process for the first shaping is slightly different from this one. It's not the most fine process. I just have come to realize that sourdough is about what works great for you. Follow the principles, but do it the best way that works for you. And that for me is making sure that I have a tight, real tight ball before I transfer it to the banneton. This is a lined floured banneton, and for the second ball of dough, I am going to make it a seeded football bread. It's almost Super Bowl Sunday, so I'm trying to have a football theme going here. I used whole flax seeds for the brown part, and then I'm going to use white sesame seeds for the stitched part. Because it's such a small area, I am going to use a piping bag and just try to get them to fall in the right place and not get all mixed up in the flax seeds. Don't drink before you do this. That's just my expert advice. You're welcome. So once you're satisfied with that, get a plate with a napkin and wet it. And then wet the dough ball, where you want the seeds to adhere to. And then drop it gently in the seeds and work it around the edges so you can pick up as much as possible. I usually let it sit for about a minute just to get it to stick to the dough ball a lot better. And then you do your best to pick it up without ripping the dough. I mean, if your dough is proofed well enough, this shouldn't be a problem. Lift it up. Here is what it looks like. It's beautiful. And transfer that to your banneton safely. Now this round one has been sitting for about 5 minutes at least now, so it makes stitching a whole lot easier. We're still trying to make it as tight of a ball as possible. That helps with the rise in the oven when you bake it. We're gonna stitch this one to a little bit better and as best as we can without messing with the seeds. And then we're gonna cover it up, and at this stage I'll let it sit on my refrigerator. It's slightly warmer over there. I let it sit on top of it for about 3 hours, and then I transfer it to the refrigerator overnight for about 10 to 12 hours, and I bake it the next day. Thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy this. Bye bye.